So yesterday I was made aware of this incredibly disturbing fact that since the beginning of the year gas prices have risen by 250% and that they've risen by 70% since August. So what they're putting this down to is the uptick in economic activity following coronavirus, and this seems to be sort of very much the biggest sort of new news story coming out since COVID, and the shortages of everything from heating gas to even things like carbon dioxide used in the humane slaughter of animals and in packaging salad and things like this. So this is something also that could very much be linked to food shortages in the future. And they're saying, well, they said yesterday that within 2 weeks we could see food shortages if something isn't done about this. So this is another example, along with examples, more minor examples of shortages and supply chain issues that have resulted, I think, from Brexit. And I think this notion of putting it down to an uptick in economic activity following coronavirus is a little bit of a sidestep or a bit, yeah, it's a bit of like an evasive tactic to put it down to that. I think this is very much to do with Brexit and the fact that we've left the European Union, and the fact that given that we've left the European Union, we no longer have such a strong bargaining position with countries like Russia, where we need to be part of a big trading bloc like the EU so that we can negotiate with things like natural gas and coal, for things like natural gas and coal I should say, and gain advantages such as, you know, being on stream with the pipeline that runs from Russia to Europe to give us gas, for instance. So this is something that worried me from the beginning with Brexit. This is one of the main reasons I voted Remain. I felt there would absolutely be these sorts of issues when it comes to fuel and food coming from the EU if we were to leave it. I knew that food prices would go up. I didn't really realise there'd be food shortages though, and I didn't really realise, well, I suppose I must have realised that because I believed that there would be shortages of energy and that would in turn lead to shortages of food and so on. And yeah, this is a pretty fucked up, scary situation to be in. And it is of course the fault of every fucker who voted for Brexit. And I don't know what we can do about this other than say renationalising gas. You know, all the gas suppliers at the moment just bring them under the aegis of British Gas once again, bring them all into administration. Maybe by doing that we can gain a stronger position when it comes to bargaining power with the EU, who in turn have to bargain with Russia for gas. And maybe like that this sort of thing can be avoided, and I think that may well be what ends up happening, something similar to that, or something more Tory and insidious than that's going to happen. But yeah, and this is compounded by the fact that the North Sea oil reserves are running out rapidly, or they have run out, and we're relying on our sort of stockpiles of petroleum and things like this. And that's a very terrifying situation. It's a very scary situation to be in. We may well in the future find ourselves having to move towards a more basic form of existence, or relying more heavily on things like renewables, you know, to the extent which we can rely on things like that. And I don't know what's going to happen. I really don't, yet again. And that's the problem with Brexit. No one knew what was going to happen. All the politicians said that they knew what was going to happen. All the sort of blowhards who voted for Brexit knew what was going to happen. Or not blowhards necessarily, but people who, for one reason or another, had a very strong opinion about what was going to happen and so on. And like I've mentioned, there's, I think, two types of Brexit voter. There's one who sort of thought we're going to become a Hong Kong of Europe and this sort of thing. Another type who actually does want to go back to this more basic form of life and this more sort of pre-industrial, agrarian form of life. And, you know, I don't know really if either of those options are particularly great. I certainly don't, well, what worries me more about this pre-industrial agrarian society that people want to move back to is the transition process leading there. And I've started writing already a novel about a civil war in Britain after Brexit. And I hate to say it, it seems like it's something that's writing itself at the moment. Got a pandemic, got energy crisis, got food shortages, yeah, that's all in there. I didn't put the pandemic in there, but I'm going to put it in there now. And yeah, it seems like it's the sort of thing that writes itself. It seems like I just need to keep following the news and putting everything that happens in the news in there, and then the novel will be written that way. I don't know. Politics frightens me. Politics and economics, political economy frightens me. Or the realities of it are quite scary, I think. And this is absolutely something that should have been talked about in the news, well, earlier this year, shouldn't it, really? And they're just waiting until now to put this revelation out there, and COVID was taking all the space on the front pages and so on. You know, it's a tactic of concealment to conceal the economic realities of Brexit with a coronavirus, it would seem. Or that's at least to some extent what I think the media is doing in all this. Yeah, it's rather scary shit, really. I bet an oil crisis is the next thing around the corner. I bet it is. I bet we have shortages at gas stations, petrol stations I should say. Or, you know, filling stations or whatever you like to call them. I bet that's the next thing around the corner with this, with Brexit. So yeah, thank you everyone for watching, bye and I love you lots.